Welcome back, second graders. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020, and today we're going to jump into a new section, the second section of our measurement unit, where we're going to be spending a couple of days talking about line plots. Now, line plots are similar to bar graphs because they're a way to represent data, but in particular, line plots are super useful to represent measurement data, so anything that you're measuring. Now here on the screen in front of you, I have a little bit of an explanation of what a line plot is. A line plot is a way to represent data using X's above a line. A line plot allows you to quickly identify the greatest value, the least value, and the most frequently occurring data in the set. Line plots are used to display a set of measurements. And over here is an example of a line plot. You can tell that there's a number line that has arrows on either end. The reason why it has arrows on either end is because numbers can go on forever. And so that's what those arrows represent. Sometimes when you're creating a line plot, it will not start at the number 1. It could start at the number 52. It just depends on the measurements that you're talking about. As you can see here with the line plots, you have X's above the line, and those X's will represent different things depending on what it is you're measuring. It could represent the number of people that have 1 centimeter long hair. That's just a random example. It just depends on what you're measuring. What this line plot example doesn't have is a key, and that is something that we are going to make sure that we include in ours, just so that we understand exactly what each of these X's represent, okay? So our job today is going to be to look at some measurement data and to create our very own line plot. So by the end, we're going to have something that looks like this. In order for you to get ready to do this, you're going to need to make sure that you have a piece of paper and a pencil or something to write with. I'm going to zoom in here too to what the rest of my problem solving task looks like. And it's really important that once you have your materials, you set up your paper so that it looks similar to what my paper looks like. I want to make sure you can see it. Now, you don't have to worry about copying over the data that's here in this part of the chart, but what I do want you to copy over is I want you to create a number line that has arrows, and I want you to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines that are about the same space apart. Okay. So as you're continuing to work on that, I'm going to read today's problem. It says, first grade students planted sunflower seeds in the beginning of this year. Yesterday, Mr. Peters measured the height of the sunflowers in inches. The measurements are below. So we have a total of 12 sunflowers, and underneath each label is the measurement of that particular flower. Now, because this is a very new activity, we're actually going to do this problem solving task together. So you can stay with me and stay focused as we go through it. The very first thing we need to do is think about the information that we need to include. Like a bar graph, we need to make sure that we have labels underneath each of these lines. And we also need to make sure that we understand what each X is going to represent. Because just like in their example, we need to make sure that we have X's. Now, Mr. Peters was measuring the sunflowers. We know there's a total of 12 sunflowers, and they're measuring different amounts. So each X is going to represent the measurement of a sunflower, or one sunflower. So here I'm going to, next in my key, and you can write a spot for your key on your paper, you're going to say X equals 1 sunflower. Now, in order for us to know what that sunflower, how tall that sunflower is, we need to include some labels underneath here, and those labels are going to represent the measurements. So at the very bottom here, I'm going to write height of sunflowers. And in the problem, it told us that he measured it in inches. So in parentheses, I'm going to write inches. So this bottom line down here is going to represent the height of the sunflowers in inches. And so now it's going to be our job to figure out what number we should start with. When I look at my data up here, I can see that my smallest number is 1 and my biggest number is 7. So I'm going to start at 1 and count on until I get to 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one more makes 8. So this is what your number line should look like. You should label it from 1 to 8. You should make sure you have down here written height of the sunflower inches. These labels are super important, and that 1x equals 1 sunflower. So now we're ready to jump into actually beginning drawing our X's. Now, the way that you're going to do this is you're going to look at your data that you have. And let's take a look at the example for the first one. Sunflower 1 measures 2 inches. So that means I need to go to the number 2 on my line plot, and right above it, I need to draw an X. I'm going to cross that off to know that I've used that one. Now I'm going to go to sunflower 2, which measures 3 inches. So I'm going to find number 3 over here, and right above it, I'm going to mark an X. Crossing that off, knowing that I've used it. All right. I want to make sure you guys can see this, okay? Sunflower 3 also measures 3 inches. So I'm going to go back to where 3 is, and I'm going to draw an X on top of the X that's already there. So when I take a look at my line plot so far, I can see that so far there's 1 sunflower that measures 2 inches, and that there's 2 sunflowers that measure 3 inches. I already used sunflower 3. So I'm going to continue this with all of the sunflowers. Sunflower 4 measures 5 inches, so I'm going to go above 5 and write an X, crossing it off. Sunflower 5 measures 4 inches, find 4 inches, make an X. Sunflower 6 measures 7 inches, right here. Draw an X above 7 to represent that. Sunflower 7 has 3 inches, so I'm going to go back to number 3, and I'm going to write an X right above that. So far, there are 3 sunflowers that have a measurement of 3 inches tall. Sunflower 8, that's 1 inch. Sunflower 9 has 7 inches, go to 7. Oh, I already have one there, so I draw an X right above it. Sunflower 10 has 1 inch. I already have one here, so there's 2 that measure 1 inch. Sunflower 11 measures 4 inches. I'm going to go to 4, and I'm going to draw an X right above the 1 that's already there. And then sunflower 12 measures 3 inches. I'm going back to 3, and I'm going to draw an X right on the top. So that's your line plot, except it's missing one thing. Bar graphs, line plots, any way that they're representing data, you need to make sure that you include a title. So let's think about a title that would make sense for this line plot. This line plot is showing me the height of the sunflowers. I know each X represents 1 sunflower, and as you can see here, we have 2 sunflowers that are 4 inches tall, 2 that are 7 inches tall, 1 that's 2 inches tall, 1 that's 5 inches tall, 2 that's 1 inches tall, and 4 that are 3 inches tall. So this is showing me the height of sunflowers, and I know it's from the first grade garden. So I'm going to call this let's see, height of first grades sunflowers. So that's your title. You probably had something similar. You can also think of other things, but it's important that not only do we include our labels with the measurement unit we're going to be measuring in, we include a key here so we know what each X represents, but we also need to include a title. So here you have it. This line plot represents the height of the first graders' flowers in their garden, or sunflowers. Awesome. We're going to work on another line plot together because these can be a little bit tricky. And again, remember, line plots are a wonderful way that you can show and represent measurement data. So here's another example of some measurement data. It says, a group of high school students compared their shoe sizes. take a look at their measurements in inches below. So high school students were measuring their shoes in inches. And as we can see here from this chart, they're ranging from, let's see, my smallest number is 8. And the largest shoe size would be 14. So there you have it. It goes from 8 to 14. You need to set up this piece of paper similar to how you set up your problem-solving task. You need to make sure that you have a line down here that has an arrow on either end because numbers continue to go. And you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines, again, evenly spaced out on your number line. All right, so I'm also going to add here a line for my title because we know that we're going to need a title, but that's something you can always do at the end. You don't have to jump into it right away. So let's take a look at this. A group of high school students were looking at their shoe measurements. They were comparing their shoe sizes in inches. So that means that the bottom line here, the numbers need to be the measurements of the shoe measurements, right? So shoe sizes. So I'm going to write shoe sizes as my label. I want to make sure you guys can see this. I know it's kind of hard. Shoe sizes. And then I'm going to include the measurement unit, inches, which is what they told me in the problem. Now, we looked at the chart and we knew that the smallest size was 8 inches and the largest size was 14. So I'm going to start at that smallest size. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Awesome. We have one extra, but that's totally fine. So I have the sizes of the shoe. So what do you think each X is going to represent? Well, each X is actually going to represent one person. And it's going to be one person's shoe sizes. And that's what we're going to see here on our line plot. So let's begin showing our data. So student number 1, his shoe size is a 12. So I'm going to go to 12 and write an X above 12. Student number 2 has a size 13 shoe. I'm going to go to 13 and draw an X right above 13. Student number 3 has a size 10. I'm going to go to number 10 and write an X right above 10. Student number 4 also has a size 10. So I'm going to draw another X right on top of it. Make sure it's right on top. Student number 5 also has a size 10. So I'm going to draw an X again right on top. Student number 6, that's size 11. So I'm going to draw an X on top of that. Student number 7, that has a size 9, or he or she has a size 9. So, yep, he or she, we don't know. So I'm going to draw an X right there. Student 8, size 11. Going to go to 11, draw an X right on top of the one that's already there. Student number 9 has a size 8. I'm going to mark it with an X. Student 10, size 14. We already talked about how that's the largest size. Student 11 has size 9, and my paper keeps slipping here. So I'm going to mark an X above the 9, and student 12 has a size 10. So I'm going to mark an X above that again. So we just represented our data here in our line plot. We know that we're measuring in terms of inches, and that each X represents one person. So the shoe size is in inches. So this is one person has a size 8 shoe. 2 people have a size 9 shoe. 4 people have a size 10 shoe. 2 people have a size 11 shoe. 1 person has a size 12. 1 person has a size 13. And 1 person has a size 14. So what do you think a good title could be for this line plot? Well, we're talking about the measurement of shoe sizes of some high school students. So we're going to say shoe sizes of high school students. Pretty similar to the label that we have down here by our number line. Awesome. So I think you're getting the hang of this, and because you're getting the hang of this, I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to have you try to do one by yourself. So in order to do this by yourself, you're going to need to set up your paper just like the others with an arrow, with a number line with arrows on either side, and 8 lines. Now, for this problem, it says, and I'm going to zoom in here because this is the most important part for you to see since you're doing this on your own, is the data. The data that you're putting into your line plot. It says, Sheena measured the books in her book baggie and came up with these measurements. You can see these measurements here for a total of 12 different books. Your job is going to be to use this information, these measurements, and to create a line plot. Your line plot should have your key. It should also have your labels. Now remember, a really important thing you can do to find out what number you should start at, you should always start at the smallest number that you have. So take a look through here and you should see that the smallest book that you have is 7 inches. You do not have a book that's smaller than that. So that can be your starting number. Okay, go ahead and use this information to create your line plot. I want you to pause the video right now so that you can go ahead and do that. Wonderful. Hopefully you had a chance to create your line plot based off of this information, and we're just going to go over now that you're finished what that is going to look like. So hopefully you included a title. I'm going to draw a line there just to remind my brain that I need to have a title. And I want to zoom in as much as I can here on this line plot. All right, so I know that Sheena was measuring the books in her book baggie, and she got different measurements. Again, I can see that it's done in inches, so I'm going to say measurement of books. And I'm going to put inches in there as a unit of measure. We talked about how, oh, you can't see that, I'm sorry. We talked about how the smallest book measures in at 7 inches, so I'm going to start labeling here. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now I can get started in putting in my data. So book 1 is 7 inches. Book 2 is 13 inches. Book 3, 8 inches. Book 4, 11 inches. Book 5, 7 inches. Book 6, 11 inches. Book 7, 9 inches. Book 8, 13 inches. Book 9, 10 inches. Book 10, 7 inches. Book 11, 7 inches. Book 12, 8 inches. Awesome. So I wrote my label on the bottom, I started with the numbers, and then I drew my X's. What does each X represent? Hopefully you realize that each X represents one book. And the numbers down here represents the measurement of those books, how tall these books are. So I'm going to write for my title, Sheena's Books. Sheena's book measurements. Knew I was missing something. Something that gets at, it's about the height of these books. Could have had something different, but as long as you get across the point that this line plot is showing you the height or the length or the measurement of Sheena's books, that's totally fine. So as you can see here, she has 4 books that are 7 inches. She has 2 books that are 8 inches and 11 inches and 13 inches. And then she has 1 book that is 9 inches and another book that is 10 inches. So right here represents the books and the measurements of the books in Sheena's book bag. Great. Now is your chance to pause here and to finish the rest of your Seesaw activity by completing the exit ticket inside the Seesaw activity. If you have any questions at all about creating a line plot and using data to help do that, please make sure you reach out to your teachers. Tomorrow we're going to go over how we can answer questions about a line plot and how we can use the line plot to help us do that. So today we're just creating line plots, and tomorrow we're going to be using them and answering questions about them. Awesome. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow with another math video.